Hello everyone, this is Shraddha. Welcome back to my channel. So last week on Friday 13th, I had the immense pleasure to talk to the phenomenal author P.E.Gilbert, and oh my god, I had so much fun. And since I'm a nice friend of yours, I'll be sharing that clip with you guys, that interview, that chat with you people. And how can you express that you appreciate our efforts? Give this video a huge thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, hit the subscribe button. Alright, I won't keep you any longer. Please continue watching.
First of all, thank you so much, Paul, for this opportunity. It means the world to me that I'm getting to talk to you, and I'm so honored. Thank you so much for being here.
Right back at you, Shraddha. I'm honored to be here as well today.
So as I told you, I've got a bunch of questions for you. Do you mind answering them?
I look forward to it. Please, fire away.
Okay, my first question. What has influenced you the most as a writer?
Oh, God, this is a hard one. You've started me off on probably the most challenging question imaginable. I would say history, fundamentally, is what has inspired me most as a writer. I studied history at university. I am fascinated by history. I love it. I read it a lot of the time. And I try to use examples from history into my writings, as then there's a plausibility to it. It feels more real. I can give you a very concrete example where something similar has happened. And I love that about history. And also, everything pretty much that you could imagine has happened in history somewhere or another, in one situation or another. And I love finding it and integrating it into my story so that it fits with my plot.
What's your favorite era in history, like medieval, modern, or ancient?
It's a really good question. And the answer is I am fascinated by so many eras within history and so many different parts of the world as well. At university and before that, I would have said to you that modern history and Western modern history in particular from about the 18th century onwards was my favorite period to study. I knew so much about it. I understand it. And also it's got to do with how the modern state works, which is where we live. So that helps as well to give me a grounding for how we have come to where we are today, which is what history in some respects is. But in the last 10 years, I've gone backwards to medieval times, to some extent ancient times as well. I've read about the Silk Roads, which I'm rereading at the moment, and learning about the peoples of Asia, the nomadic steppe peoples, even how they conquered India, such as Tamerlane and later the Mughal dynasty by Babur, and how that relates to the present day. In short, how the East has influenced the West. And it's absolutely fascinating because in times gone by, I would have said to you, the West dominated. It hasn't always dominated, but the way that you would have been taught, at least I was taught history, it's Western focused. It's almost like the West has always been the dominant power. However, the more you go back, the more you realize that's not actually true. And the reason we look at the world through a Western lens is very much because of what happened in 1492 with Christopher Columbus finding the New World, and also Vasco da Gama in 1498 finding India via the Cape of Africa. And that changed the entire way that people looked at the world. The reason the world map, particularly with England and Europe as the center, is because of those events. But that doesn't have to be true. The world is round. You can look at it in many different ways, and it looks different. And today in particular, well, Western Europe is not on the rise. If anything, it's the old Silk Roads, China and India, and the countries, what we call the failed stand states, that are dominating again. And I find it fascinating seeing how history is changing before our eyes, how the perspective is changing. So my simple answer to you is, I've focused on Western history in the past, and that's what I know best. But I am very much interested in many different periods and many different places around the world. And in more recent times, definitely Asian history has been a bit more of a focus for me.
I must say, Paul, so far, this is the most fascinating answer I've received for this question. That was so fascinating. And
Oh, thank you. Oh, my pleasure.
All right, my next question. Do you like audiobooks, physical books, or ebooks better, and why?
Well, they're all brilliant. I want to say that, and they're all a different experience. I would say I'll start with the negative, and that is I don't actually have audiobooks. For whatever reason, I haven't got into it. When I'm doing housework, ironing, etc., I listen to podcasts, but I haven't got into audiobooks. No particular reason, just haven't. I love the experience of reading myself, and I love closing my eyes and picturing the world that's being described in front of me. So I would say to you, my favorite is very much paperbacks or hard copies because it's physical, it's tangible. But for reasons of convenience, ebooks is actually my preferred method of reading today because I live in a country where Amazon doesn't really ship. So it's very hard to get. It's hard to get Amazon books. So I use my Kindle a lot these days. But in answer to your question, it's very much paperback, hardbacks, and ebooks for me. But I would love one day to get into audiobooks and certainly, and I know you'll come to it soon, to put The Sultan's Daughter into an audiobook of one kind or another. That would be wonderful. Please God, one day it will happen.
Do. Okay, my next question. Something I believe most of the readers want to know. What behind the scenes tidbit in your life would probably surprise your readers the most?
Well, I want to say that I'm absolutely flattered that my readers want to find out so much about me. I'll start by saying that. And the answer is, well, 4 years ago, I left London, packed up, not quite on the spur of the moment, but in May 2017, I surprised my family by saying I am moving country. And I left 6 weeks later, and I have returned to London, obviously, to visit. But I don't live in London anymore. I moved country, in their minds on the spur of the moment, because I'd never mentioned once moving country. And also, a more funny one, I have a monstrous appetite. It's enormous. And I need the fuel to keep writing and keep coming up with more ideas. So, yeah, I mean, you'd never believe it. If you looked at me, I'm not particularly tall. And I'm barely 5'7". I'm very slim, lean and mean, if you see what I mean, because I do exercise. But you should see the amount I eat. My friend, my former flatmate, he used to say that a meal just for me on my own was a Tudor banquet. He was like, "Who are you cooking for?" I'm like, "Oh, just me." He's surrounded by dishes. I'm surrounded by dishes all around me, all for me. And even though it doesn't get eaten in one sitting, it all gets eaten within a day or two. I know.
What's your type of food? Do you have a favorite cuisine or something?
Oh, very much so. Very Eastern European Jewish foods. I am a religious Jew myself. Hope everyone's fine on that front. I love making roasted meats, roast beef, roast chicken, chicken soup. And I love spaghetti bolognese. I make it regularly and often. In fact, I've had it most weeks since I'm about 2 or 3 years old. You know that saying, how if you eat something too much, you get bored of it? I am the proof that that is not necessarily true. I've been having, as I say, spaghetti bolognese multiple times, if not more than multiple times, every single week since I am 2, 3 years old. And I'm still making it for myself pretty much every week and eating it regularly, like 3 to 5 meals in a row. I never seem to get bored of it, and I just keep eating more of it. So maybe that would surprise my readers. I don't know. In your audience, I don't know.
All right, my next question. Something personally I want to know. What is the funniest typo you have ever written?
Oh God, I'm very happy you asked me this question. It's actually not in English where I'd say that my funniest typo ever came from. In one of my many attempts to learn Hebrew, failed obviously. I wrote that I thought I wrote that I went to visit my friend. However, the verb to visit, and there's another verb which I'll say in a moment, are very similar. So when I wrote this out, thinking, yeah, great, I've written a really good sentence, I then read it out to the class. Except it didn't say I went to visit my friend. It was I went to bury my friend. Well, talk about egg on my face. But we live and we learn. And everyone found it very funny. Their reaction was more or less like yours. And it was all done in good spirits. Thank the good Lord, though. It was just I went to visit, actually. It wasn't that I went to bury a friend. Thank God. So I would say that's my funniest one, but it's not in English, I'm afraid.
That's all right, but that was definitely astounding.
Oh, thank you.
All right, my next question. What is your favorite time to write and why?
Oh, definitely late at night. I'm very much a night owl. I have probably got chronic insomnia among other things. Um, but for whatever reason, my imagination just comes alive from about 10:30 p.m. until, depending on the night, but 1:30, 2:30, maybe even past 3:30 in the morning. And if you have a burst of energy like that where you're getting a lot done, well, then you know what? I'll take it. If it means that tomorrow is going to be a hard one at work, it's worth it because you could be waiting weeks for another burst of energy like that. So I'll definitely say to you, night owl. I'd say between usually the hours of about 10:30 to 2. I don't know why. It must be something about nighttime and the moon. I just come alive. My imagination is fueled, and off I go writing.
All
Actually, I don't
right.
go anywhere. Come to think about it, I don't actually go anywhere. I sit at my desk. I'm just typing away.
Okay. All right, my next question. How do you think being a writer has helped you as a person?
Great question. I absolutely love this one. I would say it's made me a lot more empathetic as a human being. I try to write characters that are three-dimensional, flawed, or have an internal conflict. And that's helped me understand people better. Um, I try to understand people as people. You know, the only person, if you can call him that, that is perfect is God. At least that's my belief. I think that's quite a religious belief, actually, across all religions. People are flawed. Sorry, Shraddha. I mean, you're not flawed. Trust me. I mean, you're great, fantastic, and wonderful. But generally speaking, people are flawed. They make mistakes, and I'm very accepting of that. I understand it, and I try to understand it from their point of view. And being a writer who writes from the third person limited perspective, where very much you see only what my characters see. What's happening around my characters, left, right, behind her, she can't see that, or other characters, they can't see it. And I try to imagine myself in other people's situations when they make decisions, where they act the way they do, what's going on in their lives, what don't I know about them? And I would say very much it's given me maybe a moment or two to think about that before I respond to people sometimes, and just say, you know what, it's okay. I would say that is one of the things writing has done. It's not the only thing that has contributed to me becoming more empathetic as a person, but I try to be, at least, put it that way, to other people. And writing's definitely helped me in that respect. And also, when I write characters, and particularly characters that are non-Western, like in The Sultan's Daughter, I have to understand other cultures. I have to understand why other cultures are the way they are, what's made them this way, if there is such a thing as one culture among people. It's a bit ludicrous to say that. I want to put that out there, regardless of where anybody is from. But at least I'm trying to understand where people have come from, what's their country, what was the background, what led them to be there. And it comes into history again. One of the things I love learning about different areas of the world is that I actually don't know anything about, or I don't know much about these peoples, where they've come from, what influences have affected them over the times that have gone by. And I love doing that. I love learning more about the world. And I believe it helps me understand human beings as well. Cultures, their culture, the climate of the region they're from, their borders, who are their neighbors. Again, that ties into the neighborhood that they're in. And that's priceless when it comes to understand someone. And when you're dealing with companies, it's the same approach, in my opinion. States, and I try to apply that everywhere where that I can, using the best of my knowledge. I mean, I must say my knowledge isn't as great as it should be in these respects. I should know a lot more. I try. That's all I'll say to you. I try, and it does stem a lot of that from writing, because if I want to present a really wholesome character, one that you could believe that in a particular situation that I've created, this is plausible, this is believable, the decisions that he or she has made are logical under the circumstances, then I have to understand that region, where this person has come from, what's happened in the past, etc., and so on. So in answer to your question, the short answer after this very long-winded answer, it's empathetic and understanding other people's and cultures and where they've come from.
That's amazing. All right. What is your favorite word and why?
Oh, good question. The English language is full of so many great words. It's actually a word I came across relatively recently with regards to the European Super League. Do you know about that failed idea of Florentino Perez and the backlash that came with it? But anyway, I came across a word in an article, I can't remember where, indigordigiousness. I have never used this word. It's a long word, and it really undermines this idea that picture a glutton stuffing his face and wanting more. That really is indigordigiousness. It epitomizes certain football clubs who, as we have now learned, are absolutely broke, and so not only want more, they absolutely need more to survive. They didn't present it like that, of course, at the time, but I absolutely love this word, indigordigiousness. I would love to use it one day. I don't know how yet. I don't know in what context I would use it. But one day I would love to use it, and yeah, then I'll know that the European Super League did something, at least for me.
Okay. Now, this one's kind of cool. If you didn't write, what would you do for work?
Well, I want to start by saying that writing isn't actually my day job. I write just at night because I absolutely love writing stories. I love to entertain people, and I hope that through my stories, I can provide a bit of entertainment here and there for some people, or escapism. Maybe they learn a moral. There's a moral to the story that I've inserted that they appreciate. But as I say, writing is not my day job. I have done jobs that involve writing. I've been a content writer. I've been an editor in the past as well. It's not what I'm doing currently. So in answer to your question, A, writing is not my job, but B, I don't think I ever could imagine a world without writing. I've been writing at my desk every single night for more than 12 years now. So it's what I do because I'm passionate about it. And even when I've taken breaks, because I finished books or because I just need to review what I've done, I'm always thinking about writing again. So the answer is there wouldn't be any, there wouldn't be any other. If there would be other, it'd be something like another creative endeavor, video creation. I don't think I'm a graphic designer. I've never tried it, but if I weren't writing, I'd definitely do something creative like that. And who knows, or try a business, because that's just me. Simple as. But in answer to your question, there is no alternative to writing. I want to write more stories.
All right. Now, this question is really weird to ask somebody, and well, I'm weird, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you Google yourself?
No is the simple answer. I'm not big enough or I'm not vain enough to Google myself on a regular basis. Certainly, I have done because I wanted to check what was up, like when I established a website, when I've put up Facebook pages, the book's been up. I've just wanted to see what works. And I put stuff on YouTube, what's there. But in answer to your question, no. Again, I'm not famous enough for that yet. Please God, one day I'll get there, or I'm just not vain enough.
Well, I actually tried it once or twice, but apparently I share my name with a saint. So if you ever Google my name, the picture of that saint will always show up. So I've stopped it altogether now.
Saint Shraddha, I like it. You're a saint doing this for authors like myself. So I completely agree with that. It's fitting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just to say, not to echo that, but there was a very, very famous guitarist called P.E.Gilbert as well. So my name is shared. It is a bit more common than I'd like it to be, which is also partly why my author name is P.E.Gilbert, to maybe make it look a bit different, and also because P.E.Gilbert's is a working man's name, a corporate name. P.E.Gilbert is an author name, in my opinion. So that's partly why as well.
All right, my next question. What are your favorite novels?
Oh, there are so many fantastic novels out there. So to narrow it down is nearly impossible. The two that come to mind immediately upon you asking that question are The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde and Animal Farm by George Orwell. I love those books. I've read them multiple times, and I love the moral messages to them as well. I love the allegory in Animal Farm, particularly with history and what happened in the Russian Revolution. But really, it's about how tyranny comes to the fore, and how gullible a lot of people can be with information given to them. And even those that do know what's happening around them, they still go with it because what's the point of trying to argue? I love that book. I love, as I say, Oscar Wilde's as well, The Picture of Dorian Gray. But there are so many other ones that I love. I love, it's not a novel, but I love Machiavelli's The Prince. That's another one. It's more about political ideology and and cynicism that goes into politics, which I've got to say, when I read it when I was 19 years old, it turned my head upside down, because you realize there's a lot of truth to this, and it's definitely helped me understand character motivations in stories, because in my stories I like to include political intrigue. And so what motivates a character, particularly in a position of power, to act in the way that they do? What do they want? What's their ambition? And I love that element to it. So I'd say to you, though it's not a book, Machiavelli's The Prince as well. No, to rephrase that. Although it's not a novel, Machiavelli's The Prince has definitely come into, it. I love reading it. I've read it multiple times again.
Is it this book? It's lying somewhere there. Where is it? Is it this?
I can't see who's written it. Yeah, that's it. I don't have that version of it, but yes, that is exactly it.
Listen, I'm yet to read it. I haven't started reading it yet. I'll do it.
Please do. When you've read it, please let me know. I'd love to talk to you about it.
Yes, we can. Okay, now this is something I keep on asking everyone, because apparently I'm obsessed with Cassandra Clare. Have you read any of Cassandra's books?
Repeat the author again, sorry?
Cassandra Clare?
Yeah, the Mortal Instruments series.
Mhm.
The answer to your question is not cover to cover. I was staying at someone's house once and I forgot to bring a book with me. So I read a bit of one of them. She's really good. I really enjoyed what I read. No particular reason. It wasn't mine, and I never got back to it afterwards. So yeah, maybe one day, certainly.
When you do, please tell me. I love talking about that one.
I will do, for sure.
Okay, now next question. What book are you currently reading?
At the moment, as I say, I'm rereading The Silk Roads by Professor Peter Frankopan. So it's about the Silk Roads and how they're rising again, as I mentioned earlier, and how that's relevant to the present day, how the Silk Roads have influenced various historical events, even during World War I, where often in the West we think of the Western Front and the trenches. So I've been reading that. I'm not reading a novel at the moment, I'm afraid. I will get back to it. I just read, I can't remember by who, I feel really bad saying that, a psychological thriller. Was it by Lucinda Berry? I read one of hers, The Perfect Child, which, I'm a huge fan of Lucinda Berry's. And that book is really psychologically disturbing. She's brilliant. I love the horror genre. I love psychological thrillers. And, this one kept me up at night. And I've got a high threshold for horror. I very often watch horror films and I'm just sitting there bored, like, yeah, there's the jump scare. Yep, there's the jump scare. It's come. Yeah. Yep, now there's the crescendo. Yep. This isn't what I'm trying to say is very often I've watched horror films and read horror books, and, I've enjoyed them, but they haven't scared me. They haven't made my heart beat, and the sweat come on my head. This book did. I've got to say, she is absolutely brilliant. So if you love good psychological thrillers, this is it. The Perfect Child. I would say to you, though, all her books are fantastic. Absolutely. I also once reached out to her and she responded to me as well. She's a fantastic woman, really lovely, deserves all the success that she's getting. And she's something like a clinical therapist for children, something like that. I'm not entirely sure. You probably should get in touch with her for her exact title. But you can really tell when you read her books that she knows she's been in the industry for a long time. She knows her stuff inside out and she really incorporates it super well into her stories. God, it's disturbing. Begs the question, what if that is disturbing, what's in the real world?
Well, I'm not brave enough to watch horror, so I read horror. Just saying, I'm so scared of horror movies. I can't watch it. I can't even watch horror comedy. So I'm such a loser when it comes to horror, so I don't watch them at all. I end
I
up
wouldn't
reading.
call you a loser. It's just it's not your style of film. You know, everyone's different, and you know, I happen to like it. I enjoy that particular kind of thrill in the safe environment of a cinema or in the comfort of my own home. But it's not for everybody. I appreciate that. I will say though that horror films have got bad marketing and bad PR very often because what horror films can do is something that I've hinted at just now, which is they enable you to face your fears in a safe environment where you're actually not threatened in real life. They just make you think that you are. And if it can do that to you, that's actually brilliant because then you know what your fears are, you know your boundaries, and you can push them or alternatively go back to your cave. I don't know. But I love that element to it, and I can say I know what kind of horror I find disturbing, what gets to me. It's not really relevant now, but I love it when I watch a horror film that genuinely scares me, and yeah, it is terrifying in the moment, but I come out exhilarated, like wow, that was brilliant. So, for instance, two really good horror films in my mind spring to mind. The Babadook, which is an Australian low-budget film, which by Jennifer Kent, which is absolutely fantastic. And actually, I don't want to give too much away about it, but it's done super well, and it's more about our protagonists' issues than about the supernatural elements to the story, which is really what horror is supposed to be. And the other one that springs to mind is Good Night Mummy, which is an Austrian horror film. I watched this in the cinema. I don't quite know why. It was just after my birthday when I turned about 29, and it was a midnight showing. I was the only one in this huge cinema.
Oh my
And
god.
yeah, and I remember watching this film. There's one scene where just one of the twins, he's just brushing his teeth with the tap on. That's the whole scene, and my hand was shaking, which is already brilliant. And then in another moment, I heard like someone step behind me. And I was thinking, oh God, I'm the only one in the cinema. I'm going to get jacked. You know? So that added to the sensation of watching what was, in my opinion, a really, really good horror film. So I came out of that being like, wow, that was absolutely fantastic.
Oh my god. All right. My
I
next
wouldn't
question.
recommend that kind of experience for everybody, but I really enjoyed it. I'm glad no one else was in the cinema. Yes, I did look behind my shoulder to make sure, but it was great. It added to it, as I say, and I think it's a really, really good horror film. I could keep going on with more horror films, but I appreciate you probably have at least a few other questions you'd like to ask me that are probably far more interesting than my experiences watching horror films.
All right. My next question. So you're about to release the sequel to your book, The
Mhm.
Sultan's Daughter. Could you tell us a little about it?
With absolute pleasure. I'd be delighted to. This is the second book of the Sultan's Daughter duology. It's called The Kingdom's Protector, and it's going to be released on the 26th of August. That's in just under as we're recording this, just under 2 weeks. And in the first book, one of the first scenes in the book, Princess Nalini, the Sultan's daughter, makes a promise to her father who's on his deathbed. And she says, I will do my best to hold the kingdom together and protect it. Even though she's not trained for rule and war, she has to adapt very quickly, which is what the first book is about. The second book is very much a continuation of that, and she faces an existential crisis. She lives in a country very similar to Egypt. Like Egypt with the Nile, Al Jaraba has one source of water, the Sapphire River. except in this drought that's happening now, the river's drying up or turning bloody. I mean, where do we know a story where Egypt's Nile has turned bloody? I wonder which particular historical event could that be, particularly with relation to Judaism. The story of Exodus is very much close to my heart. We read it at Passover every year, so that comes into it. And so that is essentially it. She faces an existential crisis. And the question is, seriously, as a ruler, what do you do? What would you do if your one source of water is drying up? And even if, you make a decision, what about those underneath you? What if there's another part of your country that is suffering even more than where Nalini is in the capital? And this character says, oh, no, what you've decided isn't good enough. We're going to do something else. And that essentially is it. And it's, a lot of it is driven by necessity and how that affects a ruler and her plans and, what can you do? Oh, and on top of all of that, there is the threat of religious fanaticism as well to counter. And one thing I've really loved about whenever a situation arises, it's not so much the situation that interests me, but how people react to it. And, I look back in history again for this, for my inspiration here, and even the present day, actually, with what goes on between Ethiopia and Egypt. Ethiopia has built a dam, and regularly, just as much as a threat to dam the River Nile is a declaration of war for Egypt. That just cannot happen. Egypt cannot be without its prime source of water. And I love seeing what the reaction is. So you give a situation, how do the various players respond to it? And what does that do for the ruler then? And that essentially is what the story is about.
I have a feeling this is going to keep your readers at the edge of the seats all the time they're reading it. It sounds so interesting.
Well, thank you very much. It's short, fast-paced, and full of suspense. It's a bit longer than the last one, but not significantly. The first one was about 120 pages, and this one's about 170. So that's the idea of it. I really hope you're right. And so far, the few advanced readers that I've given it to, they're full of praise. It's a good sign, I think. I hope at least. And, I really, really believe that I'll rephrase that. I've given it my absolute all. I've done my best. I've tried to ground this in history and place settings. And I would like to think that when you read it, you would believe that this is plausible. Under the circumstances, the decisions that are made are very reasonable, even if you disagree with them. And that's absolutely fine if you disagree with them. On the contrary, I would love it if you disagreed with them and let me know what you would have done in a similar situation. And, what would have happened? Yes, what potential consequences could have been from your decision. That's great. And if that, people are going to be kept on the edge of their seats, I'll be absolutely delighted. That is exactly what I want.
Okay. If you could live in some tale of the Arabian Nights, which one would it be?
I must be honest here that I'm not so familiar as I am with other fictional works of the Arabian Nights. So I'm going to give a bit of a cop-out here and say Disney's Aladdin.
You have read it or watched it?
Listen, I'm a huge Aladdin fan. I've seen both, obviously the cartoon multiple times. I've seen the live action one once. Go for the original 1992 version, I would say. So I'd say to you with that, I really would love to give you a better answer than I've given. But if you, generally speaking, if you watch Aladdin and understand that kind of region, you'll have a very good idea for the time and place for my story.
Well, I love Aladdin too, so I don't think that's a weird answer or something. But yeah, I love Aladdin. So.
Oh, great! I mean, who doesn't like the 1992 Aladdin? I mean, seriously, I have yet to meet anybody who says, "Oh, we absolutely despised it." No, it's one of the Disney classics and certainly one of the best of the Renaissance by a long way. I love it.
Me too. All right, my next question. If you could time travel, would you like to visit the past or the future?
Oh God, I mean, this is like offering me steak and also spaghetti bolognese at the same time. I'd say I'll have both at the same time, or at least one after the other, and plus chicken soup as well. What am I saying? I'll have that first. The simple answer to your question, as a historian, I would love to go back in time and see the Rome in its prime. Also, so the Timurid Samarkand. That would be amazing because Tamerlane treated his capital in around about the year 1400 like a mistress that he just kept giving more and more jewels to, kept building more buildings, most of which sadly aren't really around anymore or they're in ruins. I would love to go back to its prime. The descriptions of it by the Spanish envoy Clavijo. My Spanish is non-existent, so if I've pronounced that incorrectly, please someone correct me. It sounds wondrous. Even going to other civilizations that are destroyed, like the Aztecs, the Incas, in their prime, I'd love to see that. So, the easy answer for me would be to go back in time. Maybe I could solve some mysteries as well, like who actually killed the princes in the Tower in 1483 in London, because no one's ever been able to answer that question. But equally, as much as I love the past, I have a feeling that, well, people's hygienes, for one, were not as great as they are today, to put it mildly. So equally, I'd love to go to the future and see how mankind develops, or and see what new pieces of technology are there. I mean, think about it. We talk in history, we talk about the roaring 1920s, the roaring 20s in America, and how wonderful that was to be. You could make fortunes, apparently, relatively quickly. Land was cheap, housing was cheap, etc. You could live so lavishly, and yet think about it 100 years later now. It's the world is so different. My grandmother was sadly, she's no longer alive. She was born in 1918, just before the end of World War I, and she died in May 2016. This is one of my grandparents, that is. And to think about when you go from 1918 to nearly 100 years later, it's like the world would have been unrecognizable. So it'd be equally fascinating to go in 100 years' time, see what new cities have sprung up, what new technologies there are, and probably also, I mean, if you believe global warming to the extent of the doomsday report that we got the other day from the UN, maybe some cities will be submerged. So it'll be interesting to see which cities are no longer there, and I'll come in and say, oh yeah, I remember that city, and I'll be like, what city? That never happened, kind of thing, like ancient Alexandria is today. There's only one Alexandria, and that is modern Alexandria. You need to go scuba diving to see the ancient one.
Okay, Paul. Now let me make this answer a little darker and add a little twist.
I love darker. Go on.
What if the traveling machine has some sort of a glitch, and in the past you landed in the reign of terror? What would you do then?
Where the reign of terror of who? Stalin and the Soviet Union?
No, I was talking more with the France one.
Oh, fine, no problem. Equally, I mean, that's the precursor to the Russian Revolution, and the Russian terror, the purges. What would I do? Knowing me, I'd probably just try and get a job. Any job, really. I'd just go and get a job. I'd write about it. Probably try and cut a deal with someone in the authorities. I'd try and use my skills to the best that I could. And, I'd probably take the attitude, my head is probably going to end up on the block, so I'll try and enjoy life as well. Or not on the block, in the guillotine, with the guillotine coming down on me. So try and make the best that I could about it and, take it from there, really.
Well, if
I try to be pragmatic, that's all.
If I were you, maybe I would have taken some of the modern weaponry we are having today and get rid of Robespierre. People would have literally worshipped me if I would have redeemed them of Robespierre. So it could have been a few worse trying to put things.
Well, put it this way, as much as I would happily claim to be some kind of messiah, and if that would save me and bring me riches, yeah, sure, why not? Absolutely, I think your idea is fantastic. The problem often I have found with being a messiah is that how long does it take before people realize that you're a false messiah? And then, your head is, you'll probably be finding your head in your neck in a noose, or your head on the block, and then who knows what happens afterwards to your body. So, I'd probably try and milk it for all it's worth. and then suffer the consequences, because you're probably going to suffer the consequences anyway during the Great Terror. So yeah, I hope that there is no glitch in such a time machine. That would be truly, truly horrendous.
Yes, I agree. All right. Now, if you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Oh, wow. You're asking someone who loves to talk to describe himself in only 3 words. Wow. This makes your first question seem relatively easy. Okay. I would say loyal, dedicated, determined.
That's sweet.
3 words. Yeah. Do you want me to go into reasons, or that's it? You've spoken enough. You've answered the question.
I would love to know the reason.
Sure. Loyal. I'm an incredibly loyal friend and family member. I'd say loyalty is my #1 trait above all else, actually. I am very dedicated to what I do, whether that's my job, again, my family and friends, or to writing. As I say, I've written every night. This comes into being dependable as well. You know, I'm there. You know, again, loyal, determined, and dependable is one after. Put that as like the subheading almost. Dependable. So I'd say that, and determined, because I am very determined to succeed at what I do and try to be really good at what I do, to put it mildly. So that's why. And being determined, I try to adapt very often to my surroundings, what's going on. I try to learn and try to be a bit ahead of the curve. I'm often behind the curve as a result, I think, but at least I'm trying, and I hope one day I'll be ahead of the curve, and I'll do something that, because of all of what I've done, all the mistakes that I've made, maybe one day I'll make a mistake that actually rewards me. So those are the reasons for why I say that the way to describe myself would be loyal, dedicated, determined. I should probably have an "and" in square brackets as well between dedicated and determined, but then that would be 4 words. So there we go. Just 3.
All right. As we approach the end of this interview, would you like to say anything to your readers?
Actually, I'd like to say first, thank you to you. It has been absolutely wonderful speaking to you today. To my readers, thank you as a starting point. I really appreciate you as my audience, and as Sharada's audience as well. You guys are fantastic. If you have a creative endeavor that you want to do it, and believe in yourself absolutely. Yes, it is like climbing Mount Everest, and that's just the first round, but it will be worth it eventually. I'm still yet to get to that eventual point myself, but I believe I will get there and fulfill my ambitions, and I wish the same for you. So that's my message for you.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I am so honored I got the opportunity to talk to you. It was an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, right back at you. Likewise, it's been an honor being here today and speaking with you. You are wonderful.
I had a long time, and I didn't even realize we've been chatting for more than half an hour.
Has it been more than half? Clearly, I talk too much. That's the moral of the story here.
It was fun. It was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much for watching this video up till the very end. And I need to admit, Paul is so far the most unique person I've ever met. Unique because I hardly have ever met anyone who likes history more than I do. Like, he seemed so passionate about history, and while he was talking about it, I was utterly in awe. I just love history, and I know many people watching this video aren't a huge fan of history, but you guys need to admit, the way he said, the way he expressed was so fascinating. So yes, I like to thank Paul for his time. It meant the world to me that I got the opportunity to talk to you, Paul. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video and for being here. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys really soon. But before I go, I need to tell you something. You must have heard about the book, The Sultan's Daughter. Oh my god, I've got that weird accent now. The Sultan's Daughter by P.E.Gilbert just came out recently, and the sequel to that novel is coming out on 23rd of August. So if you have already read the first book, well, good news for you. Second book is coming out soon. And in case you haven't read the first one, please do check it out. It's totally amazing. And well, if you love history, you'll like that one too. So yeah. This was all I had to say. I'll see you guys super soon, and in the meantime, start reading The Sultan's Daughter if you haven't already.